Proportional representation is an alternative voting system that gives a voice to all members of society using one simple premise. The percentage a party receives in the vote should translate to representation in the elected body. So if 30% of the electorate support a particular party, then roughly 30% of the seats will be won by that party. This feature in a voting system has been on the list of many Canadians looking for change, but the application of such a system has often been dragged out as a boogeyman by anti-reformers. The usual cry of opposition is that we will end up a nation of squabblers, much like the current state of Israeli politics, and that the resulting government will be so weak that it has to make awful deals with fringe parties just to govern. Let's put this concern to rest. No one, and I mean no one, is advocating a nationwide PR system like they have in Israel. Canada is a much larger country with varying voices that deserve to be heard within the context of location and cultural identity. A nationwide or even provincial PR system would dull these voices and rob us of local representation. So to be clear, whenever we're speaking about proportional representation, we are speaking about a system that acknowledges regional divides and local voices. The variety of PR that is most seriously advocated in Canada is called MMP, Mixed Member Proportional. This system is actually quite easy to understand. It combines our existing first-past-the-post system with an element of proportional representation to give you two separate votes. Your first vote will be for your local representative, who is elected using first-past-the-post, just as we do now. Your second vote is for a party, where the totals of which will be used to elect regional representatives in order to achieve proportionality. This also allows voters to separate their preference on local issues from their preference on regional or national issues. So using the structure of MMP advocated by Fair Vote Canada, we end up with a House made up of 207 local MPs and 131 regional MPs, for a total of 338. This is the same amount we have now, so we wouldn't have to increase the size of Parliament. What would change are the ridings. Several of the current ridings would have to be combined, increasing the size of our local ridings in order to make room for our regional top-up MPs. Regions would have an average of 5 top-up MPs, depending on their size. There would also be a quota which parties need to meet in order to obtain regional representation. This is usually a low number, around 5%, and is used to keep out single-issue fringe parties that would seek to turn our democracy on its head. There is also the addition of lists in order to decide who fills the top-up seats. There are two kinds, open and closed. In a closed ballot, the candidates are chosen by the party or by an open nomination ballot held at a previous event. The empty top-up seats are then filled based on who makes the top of the list. Some would actually argue that our first-past-the-post system already uses a closed ballot. It's just contained to one person per party a list. The other option is an open ballot, and this is much more preferred. This allows voters to choose the top-up candidates directly, ensuring that the voter has a greater voice in who gets to represent them. The drawback to an open list is that it makes the ballot longer and slightly more complicated, but the open nature of this option may be worth the extra work. So this simple combination of first-past-the-post and PR provides Canadians with both a local rep and an accurate amount of party support with the regional representatives. It seems to be a best of both worlds scenario with the positives of both systems on display. But as with all voting systems, it is not perfect. An issue I have with MMP concerns independent candidates. Using first-past-the-post, your local rep may indeed be an independent, but there is no independent party for you to vote for in the regional top-up ballot. And of course not. Such a party makes no sense, as independents are by their very nature separate from party politics. My concern is that we are then diminishing the power of the local independent by surrounding them with party politicians based on regional support. The independent is still able to cast their vote as an MP, however their level of influence in Parliament is severely decreased by the presence of regional MPs. Another slight concern is the combination of ridings in order to achieve the lower local MP count. While most combined ridings will be reasonable in size, there will also be the need to create fairly large ridings for less populated areas that can make it more difficult for that local MP to cater to. A larger concern I have with MMP has to do with the very structure as to how we elect our local MP, first past the post. In my very first video, I list all the issues I have with our current system, including the problems of vote splitting and strategic voting. Having first past the post as part of MMP doesn't fix any of this. At a local level, we are still susceptible to all these concerns as we are today. Perhaps adding a ranked ballot to the local vote may alleviate some of these problems. So let's see how MMP stacks up against my original 4 requirements. It should appear clear that MMP meets several of my stipulations. It definitely contains a mechanism that popular support closely translates to representation via the regional candidates, so I give it props for that. And it certainly ensures local representation, with the caveat that regional representation exists alongside it and that the ridings are slightly larger. But here's where it gets dicey. Concerning the regional candidates, you are absolutely able to vote your conscience, and every single vote will count towards creating a proportional parliament. However, in terms of your local election, MMP does not fulfill these requirements. Strategic voting and vote splitting are still issues that we have to deal with. Where MMP does succeed is in eliminating phony majorities. It is more likely that this system will result in coalition governments where parties must work together in order to pass legislation. But it should be noted that this voting method does entrench the party system deeper in our political identity than it is currently. Independents are encouraged, but surrounded by party proportional representation. Perhaps there is a way to have a degree of proportionality that is achieved at the local level and that restores the power balance with the independent MPs. We'll check that system out in my next video.